On February 3, 2026, Buckingham Palace released a brief two-paragraph statement. It looked ordinary. It wasn't. Behind those calm lines was a decision that shook royal circles across Britain. Prince William had been named sole beneficiary of one of the most secret and historically significant private estates in royal history.
Miss your grandmother?
I do actually, yeah, I do miss my grandmother and my grandfather. Yeah, it's been quite a bit of change.
Not Sandringham, not Balmoral, not Windsor. Something older, hidden, guarded for decades by Queen Elizabeth II herself. When Camilla and her son Tom learned what had been transferred and what had not, tension inside palace walls reportedly surged. This was never just about land, it was about strategy, loyalty, and the Queen's final silent move. To understand it, we go back to 1944. In the middle of World War II, King George VI quietly purchased a secluded property in the Chiltern Hills. It was called the Cedar Estate. From the beginning, it was designed to disappear. No registry, no press, no ceremony. For over 80 years, only a handful of senior courtiers even knew it existed. The secret held firm. Why? Because inside Cedar was history few had ever seen. A private chapel honoring royal wartime service, 186 oak chests filled with personal letters and confidential communications, 72 undisclosed royal portraits, and 14 sealed recordings of Queen Elizabeth II in private conversations with Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, Ronald Reagan, and Charles de Gaulle. One archivist said, "This was not a museum of history. It was the raw, unfiltered architecture of royal memory." And here's the key detail. Between 2017 and 2021, William quietly visited Cedar on private weekends. No cameras, no publicity. He reviewed wartime letters, sorted dispatches, and helped preserve fragile archives. It wasn't ceremony, it was preparation. Inside the Covenant Trust, the Queen left a handwritten note. He will inherit more than the crown. He will inherit the silence that preserved it. That wasn't poetry, it was a decision.
Now let's break down the legal engine behind it all, because it's just as powerful as the estate itself. Cedar isn't part of the Crown estate. It's not under the Duchy of Cornwall. It sits inside a private legal shield called a Covenant Trust. Created in 2020 under Charter Seal 0142, the trust was witnessed by the Queen's personal solicitor and senior constitutional advisors. It included a delayed activation clause. The transfer would only trigger after two moments: the Queen's state funeral and William's formal recognition as heir to institutional responsibility. Both conditions were met. The palace confirmed it clearly. Quote, "Under the terms of the sealed Covenant Trust, the property known as the Cedar Estate shall pass in full and exclusive guardianship to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, effective immediately." One sentence, huge impact, but not everyone welcomed it. Insiders say that beginning in late 2024, Camilla had been promoting what she called a Windsor Cultural Legacy Center. The plan included culinary retreats, literary salons, and curated tours of the Cedar grounds. On the surface, it sounded refined, cultural, respectful. Behind the scenes, though, a stronger commercial vision was forming. Internal memos suggested Tom was shaping a luxury concept, a high-end tasting restaurant in the hunting lodge, an artisanal brand called Royal Wild, and exclusive dining events for elite guests. Heritage on the outside, revenue at the core. Then in October 2025, a leaked note revealed that Tom's legal team had explored reclassifying parts of Cedar under public heritage law. If approved, it could have weakened William's exclusive control and opened the door to shared oversight. In November, Camilla hosted a private reception near Henley-on-Thames. Officially, it focused on rural sustainability, but one guest later described it as a trial balloon, a preview of shared stewardship backed by donors. William learned of the event. He declined to participate. Calm, firm, No public clash. 3 weeks later, he activated the Covenant Trust. And just when it seemed Cedar was the main battleground, another surprise surfaced. On January 31, 2026, the Land Registry quietly recorded a separate transfer.
Northacre Hall. Northacre Hall is no small property. It spans 1,200 acres between Wiltshire and Berkshire, a quiet royal retreat used for private gatherings and sensitive meetings during Queen Elizabeth II's reign. With historic prestige, farmland income, and licensing rights tied to 800 years of legacy, it was considered a major royal asset. What shocked insiders most was the timing. Documents stated September 8, 2022, just weeks before the Queen passed, show she reclassified Northacre from a shared Crown estate holding into her personal sovereign property. That move allowed her to pass it privately through her will. In Appendix R3, she wrote, "Let Northacre remain with the child who bears the burden of our future. Let it be not merely shelter, but sanctuary." The decision bypassed both King Charles and Princess Anne. Handled in total secrecy, it became the first personal transfer of this scale since Queen Victoria in 1872. Only 2 living witnesses knew. The sealed envelope reportedly read, "For the reign after me." But while the paperwork was locked in, plans were forming elsewhere. Leaked notes suggest that by 2023, Camilla and Tom were exploring ways to turn Northacre into a culinary heritage destination. Publicly, it was framed as farm-to-table revival. Privately, it reportedly had interest from luxury investors abroad. The proposal included a 5-star boutique hotel, a cooking academy, and a full rebrand as a high-end Windsor escape. A 2025 study estimated licensing potential at over £48 million in 10 years. According to insiders, Camilla believed influence had already been secured through quiet discussions. But the Queen had planned ahead. By late 2025, anonymous opinion pieces began questioning whether the monarchy held too many historic estates. The language focused on modernization and generational equity. Calm tone, clear direction. Then came a final move. Tom reportedly requested a lease review on part of the estate's southern orchard, calling it unused land. The Duchy of Cornwall's legal team denied it immediately, citing inheritance protections. No negotiation. Sources later described Camilla's reaction not as loud anger, but something sharper. Frustration at being outmaneuvered by decisions already sealed. And the story was far from over. In mid-January 2026, Princess Anne reviewed the Queen's private papers in Windsor's Oak Room. Inside a leather folder marked W. William George, she found a codicil that surprised even senior royals. It concerned Clarence Hill Estate, hidden deep in the Chiltern Hills and accessible only by a private 4-mile drive. Clarence Hill had been purchased in 1947 by King George VI. It was created as a protected reserve for direct heirs, separate from Parliament, public funding, and politics. The Queen's handwritten instruction was unmistakable. "I entrust Clarence Hill to my grandson, William, in full title and spirit, free of encumbrance, free of shadow. Let it remain outside the Crown estate, immune to politics, immune to scandal. This land is a covenant, not a commodity." Immune to scandal was not casual wording. According to sources, the Queen wanted a safeguard, a place shielded from controversy, commercial pressure, and public turbulence. Clarence Hill was meant to anchor the monarchy's future with stability and integrity. It was to be a private sanctuary for William and Catherine, not a brand, not a resort, not a revenue stream. Camilla reportedly learned of the transfer on January 20 and quickly gathered legal advisors at Highgrove, with Tom present. At the time, Tom was already dealing with setbacks linked to his food brand's use of royal imagery. The pressure was rising. To Camilla, Clarence Hill represented opportunity, a relaunch, a platform. Leaked emails later revealed her vision: Imagine the launch, from the Queen's Garden to yours. The plan moved fast. By January 23, a proposal had been drafted under a newly formed company, Hill & Crown Limited, naming Tom as executive director. The concept? A boutique hospitality and agricultural brand built around sustainability and luxury positioning. It was framed as forward-thinking, green, modern, but there was one major obstacle. There was one major problem. The codicil had already been notarized. The transfer had already gone through the Duchy of Cornwall Trust, legally sealed, locked tight. Hill & Crown Limited was 3 weeks too late. Then, on January 28th, everything exploded.
An anonymous whistleblower, believed by some to be a former aide, sent the internal Hill & Crown presentation to the Lord Chancellor's office. The complaint accused the company of attempting commercial trespass on a sealed royal inheritance. The leaked documents revealed full rebranding plans, projected luxury profits, and digital mock-ups placing corporate logos over Clarence Hill's historic facade. The backlash was swift. Days later, William reportedly confronted Camilla during a private lunch at Windsor, originally arranged to mark Catherine's recovery. Sources say the exchange was brief but firm. William is said to have told her, "Clarence Hill does not exist to be bottled, branded, or sold. It is the last sanctuary of my grandmother's soul, and I will protect it as I protect my wife and children." The message was clear. Camilla reportedly left before the meal ended. Within 48 hours, Hill & Crown Limited was dissolved. Tom stepped back from 3 public appearances, citing stress. No formal statements followed, but inside palace circles, the outcome was understood. King Charles stayed publicly neutral, yet one account claims he later told Princess Anne, "Elizabeth always knew who would hold the crown, not just wear it." Still, the story wasn't finished. As Clarence Hill settled, attention shifted to an even more significant estate, Greystone Downs. 400 acres of protected woodland, a Tudor hunting lodge from 1578, a private stone chapel filled with 17th century relics. For decades, Queen Elizabeth preserved it as a symbol of restraint and duty. To her, passing it to William was symbolic, about continuity and character. To others, with an estimated value of £80 million, it was something far more strategic. And this time, the stakes were even higher. The vision for Greystone Downs was ambitious. Plans reportedly included $5,000 a night eco-lodges, private farm-to-table dinners hosted by Tom, and a members-only Royal Culinary Circle targeting elite international guests. The brand name? Windsor Sanctuary. Luxury built on royal history. Supporters called it modern. Critics called it commercialization of legacy. Behind the scenes, Camilla's legal advisor, Piers Mallory, was said to be reviewing the Queen's will, line by line, searching for any clause that could allow shared oversight, any opening, any leverage. At the same time, Tom registered a Luxembourg holding company, Stag Crown Hospitality Limited, just weeks before the will became public. Planning drafts reportedly included turning the private chapel into a mindfulness retreat and redesigning the historic stables into a vineyard spa. The transformation would have been dramatic. Then, Princess Anne intervened. She intercepted a confidential email between Camilla's lawyer and a member of the House of Lords. After reviewing it, she informed William directly. Her response was calm but firm. She's not challenging the crown, she's challenging Mother's ethics. That shifted everything. William called a closed-door meeting with the Privy Purse team. On February 3, 2026, a sealed codicil, handwritten by the Queen and notarized in 2021, was formally released. It stated clearly that Greystone Downs could not undergo any material changes, commercial development, or brand use without William's explicit approval. Precise, final, protective. One palace staff member later described the moment Camilla read the document. She opened the envelope marked with the Queen's monogram, read it once, then again. After a long silence, she reportedly said, "Even in death, she leaves me caged." William didn't respond with interviews or public drama, he responded with action. On February 5th, he quietly visited Greystone Downs with Catherine and their 3 children. Photos later showed them walking beside the frozen lake at sunset. No speeches, no statements, just presence. The message was subtle but strong. Just as that chapter seemed closed, another estate moved into focus. Green Heath Estate, valued at £37 million. If Greystone Downs was bold, Green Heath became the real shock. This wasn't empty land. It was 500 acres of protected woodland beside an ancient Roman road, secured under a royal conservation deed. For years, insiders believed it could host high-level retreats or rehabilitation programs under royal patronage.
Camilla reportedly saw potential there too. Planning began soon after the Queen's passing, but there was a critical misread. Green Heath was not a minor ceremonial field or unused hunting ground. It came with a $37 million private trust, quietly built over decades through transfers personally approved by the Queen, a financial shield hidden in plain sight. When Tom learned about the trust, sources say he was stunned. He had envisioned a high-profile culinary wellness center on the land, backed by foreign investors and luxury partners. According to insiders, Camilla believed she could secure royal endorsement while King Charles kept a lighter public schedule. Invitations were drafted, showcase dinners discussed, premium local products selected for elite events. Momentum was building. Then everything shifted. On January 30th, 2026, Princess Anne, acting through the Crown Trust Authority, finalized the transfer of Green Heath. The paperwork was backdated to December 28, 2025. Full ownership went to William, along with the $37 million trust. That evening, the final documents were delivered to Clarence House. With them came something powerful, a private audio recording of Queen Elizabeth explaining her wishes in her own voice. Her message was clear. Green Heath was to become a protected legacy zone, focused on environmental education, youth rehabilitation, and long-term stewardship. It would operate under the direct patronage of William and Catherine. No branding, no luxury resort model, no investor partnerships. That same night, Camilla reportedly held an urgent meeting with Tom and legal advisors. According to leaks, possible legal challenges were discussed, including questioning the Queen's clarity at the time she approved the deed. It was a serious move. Within 48 hours, King Charles issued a private warning. Any attempt to challenge Elizabeth's will would be seen as undermining the Crown's legacy. When that warning reached the Times on February 2nd, public reaction was immediate. Constitutional experts and royal historians defended the Queen's decision, calling any challenge legally weak and ethically questionable. That same day, Catherine made a quiet visit to a children's hospice in Windsor. No statements, no reference to the conflict, just steady presence. The contrast was striking. Then, at 9:46 a.m. on February 3rd, William arrived alone at the gates of Green Heath. Navy coat, one aide, no cameras. He signed the founding charter of the Green Heath Royal Future Trust, permanently closing the estate to commercial development. The framework reflected exactly what the Queen had outlined: education, conservation, responsibility. As he finished, a Rolls-Royce appeared at the estate's edge. Camilla stepped out, dark glasses on, a black folder in hand. She said nothing. She simply watched. She simply watched. Silent, still, facing a future she could no longer shape. Tom never appeared. By that evening, a planned royal culinary event was quietly cancelled. Camilla's team released a brief line. Her Majesty Queen Camilla regrets the recent developments and supports the King's reaffirmation of the late Queen's legacy. But one final chapter remained: Oak Ridge. On the morning of February 3rd, a sealed envelope bearing Elizabeth II's royal cipher was delivered to Prime Minister Harriet Shawcross. Inside, confirmation that Oak Ridge Estate had also been transferred to William. Unlike Balmoral or Sandringham, Oak Ridge was a private holding, protected by a special clause in the Queen's will. Bordering the Thames forests, with open fields and the ruins of a hidden Tudor chapel, its estimated value was £118 million. But this wasn't about money. Oak Ridge had been Elizabeth's refuge during difficult times, a place of reflection. For William, it was part of his childhood, where he first understood duty and belonging. In the estate's private library, a final journal note was found beside pressed lavender. It spoke of stewardship, responsibility, and guarding legacy. As news of the transfer spread, quiet speculation followed. Some suggested Oak Ridge might be reviewed if any public funds had supported it in the past. William moved quickly.
He ordered a full audit of restoration and security records dating back to 1953. Every payment reviewed, every document checked, no loose ends. But once again, the Queen had prepared. Her will included a clause titled Anticipatory Obstruction. It blocked any legal challenge to Oak Ridge from individuals outside the Windsor bloodline, including those who married into the family after 2010. The door wasn't just closed, it was locked. When the Anticipatory Obstruction clause was read aloud in the Green Drawing Room, the message was clear. Elizabeth had not just planned succession, she had protected it. Silence followed. Camilla reportedly left frustrated. Tom, according to sources, reacted sharply toward his legal advisors. Princess Anne remained composed and quietly said to King Charles, "I always knew this day would come." That evening, William and Catherine took their 3 children to Oak Ridge for the first time as its official stewards. Frost covered the fields. The air was sharp and still. George climbed the old watchtower ruins and looked across the estate. Then he asked, "Will this be ours forever?" William answered calmly, "As long as we protect it." Soon after, a final letter arrived from the Queen's solicitor, Sir Jonathan Arbor Field. Inside was one last handwritten message from Elizabeth. "If ever this estate is challenged, let it be known, Oak Ridge belongs not to power, but to patience. Let the one who bore the weight of the crown's future, not the burden of entitlement, carry it forward." Signed, Elizabeth R. Those words shifted everything. Step back and look at the full picture. Queen Elizabeth II didn't just pass down property, she built a layered legal shield around her grandson, estate by estate, clause by clause. Each document anticipated resistance, each signature closed another path of interference. She prepared for commercial proposals, for legal challenges, for quiet lobbying and public pressure. The responses were written years before the disputes ever surfaced. The bigger question remains, why did she feel such protection was necessary? The answer points to competing visions within the institution itself, one centered on preservation and duty, another leaning toward branding and expansion. In the end, Elizabeth made her decision.
And she made it final. In the end, Elizabeth chose the person she believed would protect legacy over leverage. Not someone chasing headlines, not someone focused on turning heritage into a brand, but someone willing to do quiet, unseen work, sorting wartime letters in silent archives, checking preservation systems no camera would capture, walking wooded paths beside an aging monarch, and listening more than speaking. For her, one word mattered most: stewardship. It appeared in every covenant, every clause, every safeguard set in motion long before the public understood what was happening. And that principle shaped the outcome more than any confrontation ever could. William's response never changed. No dramatic interviews, no public disputes. He signed the documents, he walked the land with his children, he let the legal structure his grandmother built speak for him, and it spoke clearly.
As dawn broke over Windsor Great Park on February 3, 2026, frost covered the hedgerows. A new chapter had already been secured, not through ceremony, but through sealed trusts and handwritten certainty. William walked the estate now entrusted to him. George asked questions about history and hidden chapels. Charlotte quietly observed, journal in hand. William answered with patience, the patience of someone who understands responsibility. This was never just ownership, it was guardianship. The commercial proposals, branding concepts, legal reviews, and holding companies all anticipated, all answered, all closed off by clauses written years earlier. As one senior footman put it, this wasn't just a house, it was the Queen's final chess move, and it was decisive. For William, these estates are not trophies, they are duties. For Camilla and Tom, the effort has ended. The legal framework stands firm, reinforced by the Queen's written and recorded wishes. Elizabeth understood something simple but powerful. Legacy is not measured in profit or influence, it is measured in stewardship, in restraint, in protecting what matters, even when the pressure comes from close by. William inherited more than land, he inherited purpose, and with it, the trust of the woman who knew him best. This chapter may be sealed, but what he does next is only beginning. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content like this.